Hey guys, we have touched a little bit on some coal mining over there, and I found this video from Catherine War, and it is a brief history of Yorkshire coal mining. I thought it might be interesting because we've done a couple posts, videos, and several people have replied about living in mining towns, and some have written me, and we've talked a little bit about coal mining over there. I'm actually was born and raised in West Virginia here, which is the largest coal mining state in the country and has been. Um, Still kind of at it over there. Very poor area, and that's probably one of the better paying jobs, especially for the areas, the kind of the remote areas where it still is. Um, so I'm familiar with it at least here. We learned about it in school in our West Virginia history or state history. So I wanted to kind of learn a little bit about it over there. So yeah, let's get it started. I will post the link to this video in the description. Also, I will add my Patreon. I am loading up the third episode right now on Patreon of Black Adder that I watched this morning. And if you guys are interested, go over there and check it out. There's also some free videos as well. All you have to do is sign up and become a member. All right, let's get this going.
This humble rock transformed Britain and Yorkshire into the workshop of the world, so join me on this rather wet and dismal day in the National Coal Mining Museum as I look at this part of Yorkshire's hidden history.
Hope the sound's not messed up.
As you can see, the vast majority of the coalfield covers West and South Yorkshire, although there's a very tiny coalfield in North Yorkshire called the Ingleton coalfield. There's been coal mining in Yorkshire since the Roman times, but for most of that time it was only used locally to either heat homes or for local manufacturing. Most of these pits were called bell pits, which is where miners would simply dig up the coal on the surface in a shallow pit. They couldn't really dig deep mines because they ran into a huge problem: water. Water would always come into the mines and they had no way of getting it out. That is, until the invention of the Newcomen steam engine in 1712, which allowed water to be pumped out of the mine and shafts to be dug deeper, thus allowing more coal to be extracted. John Smeaton from Leeds, known as the father of civil engineering, improved this machine and made it even better than before. In the mid-18th century came the Industrial Revolution, which, to keep it simple, was basically a boom in Britain's industrial creativity and output. Suddenly, almost every single industry with all these new factories and steam engines needed coal to power it, and Yorkshire was ready and willing to supply it. Britain's yearly coal output went from around 5.2 million tonnes in 1750 to 62.5 million tonnes in
Wow.
1850. Yorkshire was actually quite slow in terms of its coal development compared to other places like the North East. This is because he had a lack of water transport links. Before the invention of the railways, the waterways were really the only way to transport coal around, and Yorkshire didn't really have any. But that all changed with the creation of the Leeds-Liverpool Canal, which I've already made a video on, which you can check out afterwards. With the creation of this canal, Yorkshire coal could now be shipped to the cotton mills in Lancashire, to the ports in Liverpool. It could be shipped to all the major industrial areas of the north. It was the Yorkshire coal which helped build Britain. But for all these industrial achievements, it was done under extremely exploitative labour in some of the most deplorable and dangerous conditions. In the mid-Victorian
Yeah, that's how it was here. And obviously then you also have black lung. That is very much still a thing. I was telling one of subscribers yesterday, we were talking about coal, and when I was in school, we had to watch a movie called Matewan, which was about a town called Matewan in West Virginia, and basically what they were doing is the people that owned the mines would own like the entire towns and the shops and the houses. And so if you were a miner, you would get these little coins that weren't like real money, but it was money that they would have to turn around and basically give back to pay rent on their homes. And then they would give it back in the shops and where they had to buy their food and their clothes and stuff like that. And so they were essentially making absolute, like they were making fake money, and even the fake money they were having to give right back. So, it ended up leading to unions and people getting shot and killed, and um, it was just so exploitive.
Era. In no West Yorkshire coalface could you actually stand upright. In all of them, you had to stoop or crawl on your hands and knees to the coalface in a hot, smelly, wet, and dangerous environment, not to mention claustrophobic. In the Victorian times, some miners would take off all their clothes as they worked, covered completely in black coal dust. Sometimes they worked alongside naked women and girls. Sometimes the entire family would be working together in the mine. The only light they'd have in the otherwise pitch blackness was cheap candles, but these could prove extremely dangerous. This is because in the mining process, dangerous gases like methane, otherwise called fire damp, would be released, and because these mines weren't ventilated, they had nowhere to go but stay in the mine shaft. When in contact with a naked flame, they could go boom. Although safety lamps had been invented, a lot of miners didn't use them as they didn't give off as much light as candles and they're often quite expensive. One inspector recorded that between 1851 and 1877, 1,126 miners in Yorkshire alone died from explosions in mines. Another inspector recorded that between 1851 and 1881, over 3,200 Yorkshire workers died in accidents in mines. At the Oaks Colliery explosion in Barnsley in 1866, 361 miners and rescuers died, becoming the worst mining accident in England. A common way of searching for gas in a mine was to bring in a canary in a cage. Because they're more sensitive to these gases than humans, they'd pass out if they encountered these gases and give the workers a chance to escape. Now at this point you might be wondering how they actually got oxygen so far deep underground, and in the early days what they'd do is simply build a fire at the bottom of one of the shafts, and the fire would draw oxygen down into the fire from the surface. But later on they began to create big machines which would fan and pump air into the mine, like this one here. It wasn't until 1842 that children under 10 and women were banned from working in the coal mine, but even after the law was passed, we still have evidence of children under 10 working there. And if you're 11 or 12, well, you were still fair game, because it wasn't until 19...
Yeah, we same thing here. They would use kids. They were smaller, and they could get into those places. There's tons of pictures you can find of kids just covered in smut. And I mean, my son's age 9, 10, 11, 12, and it's wild. It's crazy.
1901 that the minimum working age was raised to 12. One account from Halifax tells us that children would pull loaded carts of coal weighing hundreds of pounds through tunnels which were no more than 16 to 20 inches in height. They'd often start work at 8 years old, but some were as young as 5. Often the
Wow.
youngest children would be trappers, and personally this is the most terrifying job. You sit in utter pitch darkness for 12 hours a day, opening and closing doors. It sounds simple, but it was so boring that if you fell asleep, it could be incredibly dangerous. Earlier today I went on a guided tour of the coal mine, and we experienced a total and utter, totally enveloping darkness which these children would sit in, and it was terrifying. You'd be hearing the scurrying of rats, and dreadful for a child to go through. In 1838 at Huskar Pit near Barnsley, 26 children, some as young as 7 years old, were drowned when a stream flooded the mine. This shocked the nation, and Queen Victoria ordered an inquiry which formed the basis of the 1842 Mines Act, which banned children from under 10 years old from working in the mines and from women working as well. When children were no longer allowed to pull these heavy loads, they used horses instead. As time went on, they began to use all manner of different machines to dig the coals, but that's not really my forte, so we're going to skip forward to the 20th century. In 1929, the South Yorkshire coalfield reached its peak when it mined 33.5 million tonnes of coal in 1 year, providing 13% of Britain's coal output that year. South Yorkshire had one of the finest coal seams, the Barnsley Bed. During the Second World War, 36,000 miners left to join the armed forces, meaning that Britain would soon suffer a fuel crisis if it couldn't find replacement labour. Without coal, trains and ships couldn't run, houses would have no fuel, and industry would grind to a halt. Britain would almost certainly lose the war. The Bevin Boys were created. 10% of all conscripted men were sent to the mines, a total of 48,000 from December 1943 onwards. Although a lot of these men deeply resented not being able to join the armed forces and getting involved in the fighting, their work was essential for the war effort. Their hard work and toil ensured that Britain had enough power for the rest of the war. British coal production peaked in 1913 at 287 million tonnes, but it was on a road of decline, and this is where we come to the end of British coal mining. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it at all. In fact, I think it's too recent, it's too raw, and it's too emotional a topic. You can still feel the effects today in some communities. It devastated some communities. It led to a loss of traditions and a way of life and a loss of heritage. And I know some people would like me to go into the 70s and 80s, but personally, I just want to leave it here. So I'm going to end with a tribute to Yorkshire and British coal industry, history, and heritage.
So the video is just kind of playing out. It was really interesting. I see a lot of similarities between, at least, I can't say everywhere, but I'm pretty sure it probably was that way across the US, but at least as far as West Virginia, coal mining and over there and some of I mean, the fact that awful things happen and people died, kids died, like that shouldn't have had to happen before people knew that like a child should not be down in a mine. Like that's crazy to me. I mean, like I said, my son is 9 and like he doesn't even remember to put his shoes on in the morning to leave the house. Like I can't even imagine. Um but yeah, that was a good video. I know it's not going to be the full history. It's not going to cover everything. It was a 9-minute video. We will watch more if you guys enjoyed this and we can get a little bit deeper into it. There's not going to be any topic that we can get all of the information on through one short video. I get comments all the time, which I love you guys commenting, especially the people who give me like really long explanations of stuff that really kind of helps me understand things, but that are constantly like, oh, well, this didn't cover everything, and there's more than this, and this is barely scratched this. Like, I know, guys. It's gonna take more videos. It's gonna take some time. I have time. We'll get there. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, we can like I said, we'll go through and we'll do some more of these videos because I know this just covered kind of one area, and even she said herself that she wasn't covering the more recent parts of it. I know Margaret Thatcher was a big part of the industry dying over there. But yeah, we will watch more. So, if you guys enjoyed this, please like, please subscribe if you have not already, and share the video. Check out my Patreon, and have a fantastic day, guys.